This is the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. I am your host, Rob. And today we're talking about, of all things, wine. Wine is one of my favorite subjects. I'm very passionate about it. My guest here shares the joy with it. Marley, how are you? Welcome to the show. This is Marley Alpers, ladies and gentlemen. And she is a huge wine aficionado and is actually involved in a very interesting piece of business that has emerged since, I believe, 2017. So, Marley, how did you get into the world of wine? I'm always excited to share this joy. You know, it is literally joy and happiness in a glass.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I just love wine. So I went to school in Italy. My husband went to school in France. That's where we started learning about wine. We were 19, 20 years old. And it was just kind of fun, right? Your college friends are drinking Boone's and Nat Light, and you're ordering a nice Merlot off the menu. And it's just something that I always loved. I got my MBA, went into the pharmaceutical industry. I had a great career over there. My husband was in the military, so we were moving all the time. And when we started having kids, I decided to stay at home and raise kids. So while I was raising kids, I had my hands in everything, right? But never stopped loving wine. So when my youngest was going into like pre-K, I was like, okay, it's my turn. What's it going to be? I didn't have any interest in going back into the pharmaceutical industry. I didn't want to go back to traveling. So I made a list. There was this book that I was reading called Redesign Your Life, and it said, make a list of all your passions. I'm like, okay, wine's my passion, right? There were some other things on the list, but I was like, okay, so wine. So I went to Google. I was like, how do you get a job in wine when you have no formal education in wine? And there wasn't a whole lot out there. Through sipping wine and Google, I found Scout and Cellar, which was a startup wine company. Reached out to them and I was like, how do I be a wine consultant? And that's kind of how my story started. I started this business thinking, this would be like what I did while I found my quote unquote real job. And it's just been the biggest gift to my family, to just me as a person, personal growth. I'm very proud to represent this brand and represent this company.
That's very, very cool. It's I was reading a bit about them, and for all the viewers out there, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this show. Make sure to hit subscribe on the Drunken Grape button, and when the notification bell comes up, select all so you don't miss any of the great content that we have week to week. But wine clubs are a great way to go. Again, if you're a viewer and you're just entering into the world of wine, you have a passion for wine. This is a great way to really immerse yourself in what's out there. And Scout and Cellar, this is a pretty exciting journey. It's a new company. I believe it started, 2017 in Dallas, Texas, yep, by an attorney. Mm-hmm. It's funny because we're talking in the green room about another famous attorney, Robert Parker, who created the whole 100-point scale. And I believe the Wine Spectator was his publication. And he became so influential that his ratings would determine how wineries would sell that year, particularly out of Burgundy and Bordeaux. He was bullish on California and allowed a lot of things to transform. And with Scout and Cellar, this is network marketing meets the wine world. And I believe they have their own label, right? So talk a bit about that, because there's also an interesting aspect. I believe they tie into sustainable viticulture, and they also tie into low sulfites, because sulfites are always something people complain about in wine.
Absolutely. The best part about Scout and Cellar is how it was founded. So Sarah Shadnick is our CEO and founder. She's an attorney. She's a young mom. She decided to leave her legal career to pursue her passion in wine. When she was studying through, she was dealing with headaches. She was getting sick. Before giving up on this dream and going back to law, she decided to figure out how she could make better wine. She just literally was like, what's going on? In the States, there's not a whole lot of restrictions on wine, right? So chemicals, pesticides can be used on grapes. They can add sugar to wine. That's not supposed to be in wine. So Sarah just traveled the world. She came in contracts with boutique farms from all over the world that were lab tested. So they're lab tested twice, at the grape level and then at the wine level. There can be absolutely nothing in this wine. It's completely clean crafted. Of the wines we test, about 3% pass the test. So very few wines can be considered our trademarked clean crafted, right? So that is how the company was founded. We're just 4 years old. So our goal for 5 years was to hit 20 million in sales. We hit it in the first 8 months of the company. We hit 40 million by year 2. We hit 78 million at the end of last year. And I cannot wait to hear where we're at the end of this year. We are on the track to being $1 billion company, because of this idea from Sarah, who's like, we can provide a better wine. And so that is how we have some of our own labels, which we come in contract with the grape growers and purchase, vintages. We also still go to the original boutique farmers. So we have kind of both on our website. So yeah, it's really exciting. When I first met Sarah, it was January of 2020. I met her in person. I said, why network marketing? Because personally, it was never something that was on my radar. Being a wife in the military, a lot of spouses sold something. And I was like, I'm never going to sell anything, right? But Sarah's whole idea, she said, wine should be enjoyed around a table with your friends. Wine should not be impersonal. Wine should be personal. And our entire company is focusing on the farmers, these small boutique farmers. They're not doing anything special for them. They've been creating wines the right way for generations. We are highlighting them. So when we are sitting here and we travel and we do tastings, we are focusing on the growers. We're focusing on the winemakers. And I mean, we've even, Mo Momtazi, he's an Oregon winemaker, grape grower. His family escaped the Islamic regime 37 years ago. And they've created this beautiful, beautiful vineyard in Oregon, completely clean crafted. So we're working with biodynamic farmers. We're working with, we're celebrating the farmers that are doing it the right way. We aren't allowed to add tannins to our wines to fix anything. We're not allowed to add sugar. We're not allowed to add mega purple to help the color. We have to rely on quality grapes. And so this whole multi-level marketing was something I would never thought I'd be a part of. All of a sudden it makes sense to me, because to me, I'm sitting around a table and I'm sharing wine, and then I'm getting in front of your friends and I'm sharing wine and we're sharing the stories. And here we are supporting these small farmers. There's so much corporate wine now, right? We're competing against corporate wine, the grocery store, mass-produced wines, but there are better wines out there. And so I'm really proud to represent those farmers, that are doing it the right way.
Well, absolutely. And it's sustainable. It's cool that you talk about sustainable viticulture and biodynamics and organic viticulture, because, a lot of what was the Bordeaux mixture to prevent a lot of fungal infections in the vineyard is copper sulfites. And they would spray the ground with copper sulfites. And in fact, in Bordeaux, Sauvignon Blanc would start to have a brownish hue over decades of this being sprayed. And they had to pull away from it because, their sulfites are a byproduct of fermentation. That is something that's just naturally going to come out. But you're looking at a low parts per million count that's almost negligible. And the problem is, then you go into the vineyard and they spray with sulfur dioxide. They'll use that as a disinfectant to wipe out a lot of microbes and bacteria. They'll spray the barrels with it, and they'll spray the grapes after they've been picked, often before they crush and destem. And obviously this gets into the wine. And then on the commercial side of it, I know certain wine regions around the world, if you get into inexpensive Spanish wines or anything that's really about $9 or $10 a bottle, you get the old adage of what you pay for, right? So they definitely add dyes. They can chaptalize the wine. They can do all sorts of things to manipulate it. And it's great that there's this huge focus now getting back to the original roots of viticulture. You're talking about biodynamics where they use, manure to fertilize, for instance. If they have a local pest population of bugs attacking the vines, they'll bring in predator insects and they'll allow nature to run its course. I believe they even follow the lunar cycle of things. It's a very interesting, almost cultic practice, but you get these very clean wines. And
beautifully grown grapes. So the great wines come from great grapes. So, we've worked with some really interesting vineyards that do like just what you're saying. One was the vineyard is no sex for butterflies. It's like they use caterpillars and sexual confusion to keep them off the grapes. It's like a whole thing to keep the caterpillars from eating the vines. I mean, it's incredible. And it's, like I said, it's very exciting. So when I'm like, oh, I want to be in a wine business, I didn't really know half of what I know now. And as Scout and Cellar has grown, we now have hired John McDaniel, who's this, pretty well-known somm. He's 40 under 40. He's doing all this wine education with us. I'm also working on my WSET. So it's like,
hey, cool.
When you're just, I finished the one. I'm on my 2 now. I got 100 on my 1, just to let you know.
Nice.
But it's one of those things where what started as, wine is fun. I think that would be kind of cool to get in the wine business. And now I'm really passionate about what we are putting in our bodies. And I love supporting these little farmers. Like I love, let's give it to the guy who's doing it the right way. And it's not just cheap wines that are manipulating this process, right? There are higher priced wines that want a certain color and they add that mega purple. Like your tea should not be purple when you're drinking red wine. That's a lot of that is added to the wine. So that's not supposed to be there. And I think that's one thing when I'm sitting around the table at these tastings, how many women don't drink red wine out in public because they don't want to have stained teeth? Now, take a sip of my wine, now swish it around your mouth. You're not going to have that dyed teeth. So I just, the more I'm learning, the more excitable I get about it. So it's not a hard product to share. And we were talking in the green room, like, it's a hard time overall in life, but wine is a happy thing. There's no stress in this business, guys. Wine is awesome. So
no, it's one thing I've always been asked of why I'm in this business, why I got into wine and beer and got deeply educated in both of them. I said, it just brings joy and happiness. And for the viewers out there, wine can be intimidating. I mean, there's volumes of information you need to know at certain levels as you go through, from WSET level 1 all the way to level 4 with the diploma. And then even getting into the Institute of Masters of Wine, that's an entire different beast in itself. Or the Wine Scholar Guild, where you do your French wine scholar, your Spanish wine scholar, the Italian wine scholar. These are also advanced, pretty much level 4 like courses. You'll read a book that's 500 pages just on France. But you don't need to go anywhere near there. The whole point of this is love and happiness in a glass. And on that note, it's the happy hour. Cheers to you, Marley.
Cheers.
What are you drinking in the glass there? What do you have?
I am drinking, it's actually a club wine. It's a Garnacha from Spain.
Yes.
I love a Spanish red. This is 2019 Garnacha from La Mancha. It's a Oso Pardo. It's got a little spice to it. I love a little spice in my wine.
Nice. Well, it's Grenache is the actual grape. It's I have Pinot Noir here. So this is it's light. It's got a lot of light red cherry. There's definitely some strawberry, a little bit of tobacco leaf notes on this. It's a bit of spiciness. I can smell hints of cinnamon on the palate, just on the nose. I mean, aromatics are about 85 to 90% of taste, right? And
so anytime you say cherry or tobacco when you describe wine, I know it's going to be the wine that I love. That's my language. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just sort of seems to me, Pinot Noir is an ancient cultivator. It's one of the parent grapes to Chardonnay. This grape goes back thousands of years. It's one of the original, almost ancestral grapes. It's also a very difficult cultivator because it's prone to bunch rot. Pinot Noir means pine cone, basically, and it's a tight, it's a tight cluster of thin-skinned grapes. So damp conditions, it tends to do well in these damp conditions, but you don't want it to be too damp. You definitely need adequate sunlight. Sunlight of all the factors is perhaps the most important because it allows the heat to radiate back on the vineyard at nighttime because it tends to grow in rockier, limestone-based soils. But it's also a brilliant wine or a brilliant grape because you can create sparkling wine from it too. You know, champagne. It's one of the three. It's one of the three components of champagne. So cheers to you. I mean, that is good. And the Pinot Noir is one of the noble grapes of the world. I think it's 10th on the list as far as its global reach. And when I say noble grape variety, it's because there's multiple regions now in the world that produce excellent quality Pinot Noir. You know, you mentioned Oregon. Oregon's a hotbed for Pinot Noir. The Russian River Valley, Sonoma. You get into Soyuz you get into British Columbia, Quails Gate. They produce a brilliant Pinot Noir. In the Okanagan Valley, you have New Zealand.
We've got some Chilean. We've had some from Chile come in here.
I mean, it's popping up. It's not just Burgundy. It's its original ancestral home, but it's really spread to many corners of the planet now.
And they all have their own style and their own flavor to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming to a close here, but I want to bring up and share. I'm trying to find where the screen share is because we normally are able to share. I want to share something with the folks or the audience here. And it's definitely, here we are. We're going to bring up the website.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And there we go. It's coming up. So this is Scout and Cellar. They have various brands of wine. We're going to get into that. You know, it talks a bit about the holiday stock up event. I love this because if you really don't know a lot about wine, this is a great way to jump into it. You have a whole array of wines here. Looks like you have a Pinot Grigio, you have sparkling, you have some red wines. That looks like Chardonnay, just judging by the bottle, or Pinot Noir. And you can join the wine club. Then they talk about, their brands, the brands of wine, what's available in the list. This is quite a developed shopping list, I might say, especially for a company that's only 4 years old.
And they each have their own brand story. You can learn about the growers.
That's cool.
You can learn about so there's so when we come into contract with a farmer and if they have, they're producing a really bold Zinfandel, then we will find which label that bold Zinfandel. It's probably going to be under the Gallivant label because it's just we're really trying to stick with if we have customers that just really love that fruit forward wine or whatever it is that they love, we can say, you're going to really love this label here. Wine clubs, so my website's scoutandcellar.com/Marlia Alpers. But wine clubs or a la carte, we guarantee all the wine. So if you ever ordered a bottle and you were like, it's not really what I wanted, we credit your account or we send you a new bottle. So you never have what other company does that? Like you never really have a risk if you've never tried a Tempranillo and you're like, maybe I'll try one today. And just know that if you don't love it, which I hope you do love it, that, we will make it right because we want you. This is about the wine. Rob, you talked earlier that some people are intimidated about wine, and I'm no expert at all. I do the Wine Wednesdays on LinkedIn, and that's how we met. But I think wine should be approachable. Like, if you're at a restaurant and you like to eat, steak and drink Sauvignon Blanc with it, you do you. Like, you do that. I don't think there has to be so many rules because I think that intimidation is what's keeping people from feeling comfortable to walk into a wine store or go to my website and just pick wine. Like, it's fun. It's fun to explore the flavors. It's fun to just using your nose and trying to sniff out what you're smelling in the grapes. Because the more you practice, the more it's, you learn and it becomes, it becomes really fun. So, so we guarantee all our wines. A wine club is, a fantastic wine that our Psalms pick out the wines every month. You could do monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly. You could do 6 bottles, 12 bottles, or 4 bottles, all red, all white, or mixed. But the beauty about the wine club is that, before being in a wine business, I would walk into our local wine shop and I would probably feel comfortable getting maybe a Chardonnay, maybe a Cabernet. I wouldn't feel comfortable going outside of my little comfort zone. And so your wine club is, to your door. It's an e-commerce wine business, right? You're getting these boutique these wines that you've never heard of. Viera, Vermentino, Tempranillo. I mean, just wines that you may not be as comfortable going to a wine shop, and they're showing up at your door. And if you don't love them, what if we get to, make it right. But then you get exposed to the stories of the farmers, exposed to new varietals. There's some people that order cases every month of just one variety, right? They're like, I only want Pinot Noir, but they're missing out on so much beautiful wine out there. So that's the best thing about the wine club. You just get exposed to things that you've just never heard of before. Colombard, it's usually a blending grape that came as a full 100% Colombard wine. It was a low priced wine. It was pretty nice this summer. It's a nice white, refreshing wine to drink. I would have never picked out something like that at the wine store. So that's the beauty of our wine club.
And this really helps the whole world of wine, which I believe now is about a $70 billion piece of business globally.
72 billion. Yeah.
72 billion. It's weird because even the world of beer, I believe beer's 10 times that. Think about that for a second. Like the alcohol business is $1 trillion business on the planet. And
I wonder what the numbers are after the pandemic. I wonder if that's gone up because
I know alcohol consumption has. And I think the other part of it is people are definitely getting more sophisticated. That is my experience. So what this does, and I think this company is brilliant in a lot of ways, the more I dive into it, the more you realize how much it really does have to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if this is available in Canada, but I believe it's available in the U.S. And how many other countries? Is it just local to the U.S. right now? Or
we're just states. Yeah, we're just in the States right now. Those alcohol and liquor laws are kind of they're kind of a challenge.
They're tough.
Every state's got their own rules. And so we ship to most of the states. There's a few that we don't because of their own liquor laws, but we're every day fighting. But when I asked Sarah if we're ever going to go global, she said it's not off the table. So again, we're just a baby of a company. Our growth has been so massive, and going into a pandemic where e-commerce wine overnight, we just blew up without, because we come in contract 18 months or so before the wine comes on the website. So we weren't prepared, as none of us were, to the world shutting down. So last year was huge for us. And so I think we're just trying to keep up with our growth. I hope we can expand, especially through like meeting you. And I've got so many contacts on LinkedIn that, the world needs Scout and Cellar. So,
well, it does. It brings a lot of happiness and joy. And you hit on some really interesting points that I'm just going to recap or reiterate here. It's, first of all, it brings wine to the home. The pandemic, online shopping boomed. A lot of these vineyards, they had, they had on-premise sales. They were selling at the hotel, the wedding center. They were selling into restaurants, bars, all sorts of establishments. That went to a standstill with it all. And what happened was they had to pivot and they had to go online. And I am not surprised that this business just took advantage of it and exploded. And what it does is that, with marketing samples, for instance, you go into a wine shop and there's hundreds of different varietals. There's tons of different, there's even like 15 different types of Chardonnay, or you get into Rioja and it's mostly Tempranillo based, but you have a pile of wine and Rioja. And most people are even probably listening right now going, what the hell is Rioja? Well, it's a wonderful region in the Basque Country in Spain. But, this is what I'm getting at. So with all these options, it causes a lot of confusion. And then, of course, somebody turns on Netflix and watches Psalms and sees what you have to go through to become a master sommelier. And they go, oh, my God, that's intimidating. But a business like this collapses it. Or
Psalms will laugh at, like, people will feel uncomfortable. Like, some people want their wine to be colder than it's supposed to be served, and they feel scared to tell anyone. They don't want people to make fun of them. It shouldn't be like that. If you want to drink your wine, you drink it how you like to enjoy it. And the rules are there to guide us. But it's subjective, right? Our tastes are all completely different. So yeah, I want it to be, everyone should be enjoying glasses of wine and not feel like they have to explain themselves for why they like something.
Absolutely. And what this does is it slices down that, that terror of having too many options and streamlines it. Then you can get into the wine member or the wine club of the month where you get to try different styles. I highly recommend this because this is going to open up your palate and your whole sensory experience. as well as just the engagement with wine. And it really opens up a lot of things, I think, that are really, really fundamentally important to this field. I mean, this is what's going to drive it.
Yeah. And, you know, we've got like the company itself. I keep on saying how proud I am. We're led by 5 core values. One of them is doing the right thing. So we had those California wildfires last year. They were horrific. We lost so many grapes from there. We honored every single contract. So even though we had no grapes coming out, you can't fix ash. You can't fix that on grapes.
No.
It's destroyed crop.
It's gone.
So a lot of these big corporate wineries pulled out contracts. There's no wine, there's no grapes, that you don't get our money, but we honored every contract. So with Scout and Cellar, like if there's no fixing bad grapes, you can't fix it. You know, if you harvest cabs if they're too young or too old, we can't fix it by adding anything. We can't add tannins. We can't add anything.
No.
But we can blend. So we can blend to make, you know, nice red blends or whatever. But yeah, so we are just founded by, you know, core values, and it's just led by just good people. It's just a good company that's trying to make a difference in this wine world. And we are. So it's pretty exciting. We're only on year 4. Like we're on our way. And we just, you know, actually, matter of fact, in March, we entered in our first blind taste test. It was the San Francisco Chronicles. There were like 5,700 wines. We placed, all 4 of our wines placed. And that Dove Hunt Dog Sauvignon Blanc that was on our website, that got a gold medal. So it's so now we're considered a top 50 winery in the United States, which is really exciting. It's just fun to watch the company. Dreams we didn't even have 4 years ago are now, you know, we have them, and we're shooting for the stars even further, right? So, yeah, I'm real proud. I have to pinch myself that I just decided to just go outside my comfort zone and try to be a wine girl, and it's just been the greatest gift.
That's awesome. We're going to wrap up the show. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to reach out to Marley Alpers. I'm going to have her contact details in the description of this show, and you know, integrity is such an integral part of things. And I'm going to close on this comment, because if you want to get involved, whether it's working for somebody, launching your own business, or being part of a much greater entity where you do have the flexibility and freedom of self-employment, such as what you're experiencing, Marley, you want integrity, because you want your core values to line up with the company's core values. You also want to work with and engage in a place that actually backs up people in good times and bad especially, because, you know, the good times, everybody just pulls out the party hats and they're happy, right? But you really want to have something that backs you in the bad times. I think this is a great company. I believe we're going to hear an awful lot more about this company as time progresses into the years ahead and the decades that follow where we're at now. And this is an exciting time. So, you know, thank you very much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this awesome segment of the Happy Hour. Have a terrific day. This is Rob and Marley from The Drunken Grape.
Thank you.